Hi, so today I'm going to start a piece with Sgraffito. Sgraffito, S-G-R-A-F-F-I-T-O, is the act of putting on a layer of a color and then scratching through it to see the color underneath. In this case, I'm going to be working with a ceramic dish that I've made. So this is a wheel thrown and trimmed dish that I've made, and I'm going to be working with Underglaze. Sgraffito is a method that you can use in a variety of art media. It's not only for ceramics, but today we're going to talk about how to do it with ceramics. So I've got my Underglaze. In this case, it is Saks brand Jet Black. And I'm going to shake it up before I open it. Make sure your lid is on before you shake it up. I've made that mistake a couple of times. You'd think I'd learn after the first. All right, so we're gonna get this opened up. I've got myself set up with a banding wheel. If you have a banding wheel with you at home and you're one of my students, your banding wheel is probably a different color. It's probably the aluminum color. If you don't have a banding wheel, that works perfectly well too. You can simply use a paintbrush to do this. So I'm gonna get this open. All right. Oops, I got a little bit of stuff in there. All right. So I'm gonna wanna take a clean paintbrush. Mine is pretty big, you could use a smaller one. Actually, I'm gonna end up using the smaller one because the opening of this jar is pretty small. So I can actually like kind of pour a little bit since I have a banding wheel. Center the piece in the banding wheel, and I'm just gonna spread the pigment up to the lip. And I can tell that's not quite centered, so I'm gonna scooch it over. And I just wanna get a really nice, smooth layer there of underglaze. And I'm just gonna come back in one more time. And I'm gonna have that come over the lip of my piece. Okay, and now comes the super fun part where I probably am gonna wait about 5 or 10 minutes for this layer to dry. The piece that I started with is leather hard. You don't wanna do this on a piece that's wet. You wanna do this on a piece that's leather hard. If you try to do it on a piece that's wet, it's just gonna mush when you try to carve in your design. So now we wait. All right, and we're back for layer 2. You can tell that most of the sheen is gone. And if I really wanna know if it's dry enough, touch it. And if nothing comes off on your finger, it's dry enough for another layer. So I'm gonna make sure that this is centered. I'm gonna get my paintbrush, gonna get my underglaze. And once again, I'm going to start in the middle. And you notice that I'm using my hand to spin the banding wheel here to try to create as seamless of a layer as possible. Then I'm gonna start back in the middle again because it's a little bit asymmetrical, so I'm just spinning it. And moving my brush up the edge. Special attention given to the edge, making sure that that gets a nice even coat, because that's where our eye goes when we first see a piece anyway. Okay, so that's layer 2. I'm gonna do one more in just a bit, so I'm gonna wait another 5 or 10 minutes for this coat to dry and then do the last one. If I don't wait for my coats to dry fully in between, or if I don't use a fan or a hair dryer to dry them fully in between, I'm actually just gonna be spreading around the first layer the whole time, and you won't know until you fired it, but once you fire it, it'll look really streaky if there isn't enough underglaze layered up on top of each other. So please be patient. All right, and here we are to paint the third coat, which should be the final coat. And once again, I can check this. If I touch it, nothing comes off on my finger. So that's how I know that it's ready to receive another coat. Got it on my banding wheel. And I've got my underglaze here. And I'm gonna start painting it. You'll notice that I'm using my hand to spin my banding wheel so that it's going on evenly. All right, hello and welcome back to the tutorial about Sgraffito. I've got my dish that I applied 3 coats of black underglaze on the front, and off camera, because it's kind of boring, 3 coats on the back as well. See, I've got my cool little name stamp on there as well. So there are a lot of different ways that you can approach putting a design on a piece for Sgraffito, but the one I'm going to do today is using a photograph. You could also translate this to a drawing that you've made, or like a stencil or anything like that. You can also just freehand Sgraffito or use cookie cutters to create like lines, especially if you're trying to make circles or equilateral triangles or anything like that, where it would be really difficult to measure. You can also set up a ruler and do a whole situation for yourself if you want. But like I said, today I've got, this is now kind of like a hard leather consistency. When I rub it, the underglaze does not come off on my hand at all because it is dry. And it has set. I put it in a bin overnight and let it finish setting up because I didn't want to mess the texture. The day that I was recording that, a rainstorm came through in the afternoon, the humidity changed, and it just took forever to dry, so I didn't get to it the same day. So I've gone ahead and I found a picture of a leaf that is Creative Commons licensed. You do not want to ever use just any image that you find on the internet. You want to use something that is licensed for free use, and I can talk about that a little bit more in another video. But this picture is, anyway, I'm going to end up kind of artistically interpreting it on the piece. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, I've already started cutting it out. I don't want to fully cut it out, but I do want to cut it out insofar as I can tell where it's going, so that I can get a sense for what it's going to look like in my piece. So I've got my leaf cut out like this. You can see that I didn't come all the way up to the edges because I'm actually going to be pressing through this into my piece. So I've got that in there. My options for what I'm going to use to press through, I can use this guy, which is just like a sharp tool. I could use something that's like a pencil. I found this in some random hardware store some time ago, and it might turn out handy today. Or you can just straight up use your needle tool, which for some reason I didn't actually bring over here, but it's what I'm going to use. And this is my needle tool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place it. Now I'm thinking about, like, do I want to have it dead center? Do I want to have it like kind of have a feeling of moving? I think I do want to go dead center with this, because I was thinking originally that I'd have like a smaller one and a bigger one kind of moving with each other, but I think I just want to do the one. So I'm going to place it there, and then I'm going to use the tip of my needle tool, and this is the really important part. So instead of trying to drag like this, if I'm going to drag the tool, I actually want to have it at like a 45-degree angle and drag this way. So you notice this is different from vertical dragging. Don't do that. That's going to just rip your paper. And putting it at a 45-degree angle or closer to parallel to the surface and dragging, that's going to not rip your paper. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is make an outline. I'm dragging my needle tool right on top of the exterior edge of the leaf. And I'm gonna hold this here. It's really important that you not let it move, but I can peel this back to show you. It's already starting to make a slight indentation there. And then later, that slight indentation is going to be the thing that I follow. And peel it back to make sure that I got all of the lines that I wanted. Yeah. So now you can see I've got the basic outlines of the leaf on there, but wait, this is Sgraffito. I thought you were supposed to carve through to see something else. Exactly right. This is just step one. So now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna carve deeper. I think I'll start by still using the needle tool. This is a tool that is often used for Sgraffito. I would usually just call this a Sgraffito tool or a loop tool. And this one would be really useful if I had a thicker line that I was going for, but I am looking for kind of a delicate line quality, so I'm gonna be primarily using this tool. Although I might wanna come in even with something thinner, like this little scalpel tool. But anything that's sharp and can take away a little bit is good. All right, so here we go. So now that I'm done carving, one of the tips and tricks that I can share with you is if you made any mistakes where you took off more than you intended, which I have a couple of spots. I also found that there was a little bristle from my paintbrush that was stuck in there, and I pulled it out, and I'm gonna just go back in and I'm gonna just lightly touch that up with some black underglaze with my paintbrush. Since you've been using your paintbrush, it probably has a little bit of white from the clay in it, so you'd want to wash it and dry it really well before you do that. But this would be my finished Sgraffito, and at this point I would go ahead and bisque fire it, and then after the bisque firing I would consider using a clear or translucent glaze on it so that I could highlight what I have there.